Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Pod Save Chocolate. My name is Clay Gordon. I am your host today, and it is the first really wintry day here in Prescott, Arizona. We've got several inches, many more centimeters of snow here, and it's a good day to be inside, to stay warm, and to cuddle up with a hot chocolate, a coffee, however it is that you're going to be joining me today. And which is a reminder, you can go into the comments, whether you are on YouTube, the live chat, or LinkedIn or Facebook, and let me know where in the world you are connecting from. I'll get the shout out up on the screen. And then if you have a question or a comment about any of the news that I'm going to be presenting today, you can also get a question or comment about it. And then if you have a question you'd like to ask me, after all, this is the news and AMA, or Ask Me Anything session. Before I get started, I would like to also mention that this episode of Pod Save Chocolate, like every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, is sponsored by members of The Chocolate Life. The Chocolate Life homepage is being shown right now. And here you'll find links to over 1,500 different posts on all aspects of cocoa and chocolate, dating back, some of them back to 2008. But if you'd like to get to the complete archive of The Chocolate Life, the historical archive, you can click on Archives at the top of the page and find it. One thing that I have done in the last week is that the links to episodes 1 through 100 have been moved to their own page to make it load a little faster. There is a separate episode for links to episodes 101 plus. This is just to make things a whole lot easier for everybody to find things. Right? For every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, I put together a post. And this post contains links that I am going to be talking about, background stories, and things like that. So you don't have to follow along to get the URLs of the pages that I'm visiting. What you can do is you can go and click on this page, and then you can follow along after the fact so that you can read the articles at your leisure. And one of the reasons why I think this is important, I try to link to primary sources. Not always possible, but I try to link to primary sources. The idea being that you shouldn't take me at my word. I mean, I do my research. I do the best that I can. You may say, oh, I have some fact checking that I'd like to do on you, Clay. Maybe I've heard something different. And so that's one of the reasons why I provide all the links to everything that I'm doing. And with that, let's just get stuck in today's episode. All right. So I want to start off with the price of cocoa. And this is a service called barchart.com. And what they're doing, for some reason, it never remembers that I'm logged in. And this is where we're looking at what the price of cocoa is right now. So the cash price for cocoa on the commodity exchange, the New York Exchange, is currently about $8,200 per ton. It's a slight uptick today, right? But what we do is we take a look at the futures price, and we can see that about 18 months out, what we're looking at a cash price of a little under $7,000 a ton. There's a little bit of volatility there, but we're looking at straight downward prices. So there is a trend which says, okay, we can see the prices going down. Why should you know this? If you're in the chocolate business and you're buying cocoa, at least once a week, you should go and take a look at what the futures prices for cocos are. So what you can do is you can start thinking about, okay, when am I going to buy cocoa? Where are the price trends going to be, and what can I afford at any given time? There's another view that you might want to take a look at, This is again from barchart.com. And this is an historical view. And what you could do is this will give you an idea about how the price of cocoa has changed over the course of many years. But it includes some information as what the 52-week high was and what the 52-week low is when it reached those highs and lows, again, to get a sense of volatility. So you know it provides a longer term view. Really important view to take a look at. And then finally, what's called the moving average. And what the moving average does, excuse me, is it lets you know, like, here's today's cash price, but here is the 20-day moving average, the 50-day moving average, the 100-day moving average, and the 200-day moving average. And again, the idea of here is to get a sense of volatility and what's going on. So again, we're looking at a general downward price trend between now and the end of 2026. So the real question is, well, before we do that, what does that sort of look like? And so here's a website called Trading Economics, and I like it because it provides, there's a 1-year trend, but you can also get to a 50-year trend. For some reason, they've hidden that one behind a paywall, but you can get an idea about, all right, here's what's going on, right? So we see the price of cocoa has stayed within a very narrow range for most of the last 10 years, but within the last year, it's just boom, it's all over the place. We all know that, right? But this is a way to visualize it just to get a sense for what it's like. Now, it's also important to know that this particular view is looking at what are called constant dollar terms. So this is the US dollar, at 1-to-1. There's no accounting for inflation in these views, which is a challenge. And so we need to know that this roughly $12,300 a ton peak last year is about half of what the 1977 peak was adjusted for inflation. If we had taken the 1977 peak was of 5,700, if I believe, and then we go and adjust it for inflation, where it's something like $25,000 a ton, $27,000 a ton. So even though the absolute number is quite a shock in relative buying power terms, it's still nowhere near the most expensive. But I also like this page because there is a little bit of description about what it is that's going on. So prices have been under pressure since ICCO's February 29th estimate of a global cocoa surplus of 142,000 metric tons for the upcoming year, making the first surplus. But what we need to go then take a look is, here's a newsletter I subscribe to called Cocoa Radar. You can subscribe to this newsletter if you want to scroll down past the first couple hundred words. You'll need to subscribe, but I have a subscription. But this is Anthony Myers, who used to be the editor at Confectionery News magazine. Left Confectionery News, is now doing this. And what he says is that ICCO boss, that's Michelle Arion, who's the president of the International Cocoa Organization, predicts there will not be enough cocoa to supply the market this season. So even though just 2 weeks ago, ICCO's official forecast was that there is going to be a surplus in the upcoming year, they're backpedaling that. They're backpedaling right now. So the market is nervous about the prospect of a 4th-year supply deficit. And Arion is quoted to say, the immediate question is, shall we have enough cocoa to supply the market in 2024, 2025? The answer is probably no. And if that is in fact the case, what's going to happen is that the prices that we see, floating down on the futures market are likely very optimistic. Right? So this is what the market thinks today. Is it going to be what the market is thinking a month from now or 2 months from now? The answer is maybe not. And so right now, the price is as low as it's been in 16, 18 months or something like that. And so if you do have the revenues, if you do have the resources to go and purchase cocoa, now would be a good time to do it, because there's no guarantee. There's still the threat of diseases, which are unknown. And one of the things that hasn't happened in the last year is there's been no systemic investment in cocoa farms, which are going to work to help farmers mitigate, adapt to climate change, become more resilient. in their farming efforts. And without that investment by industry, right, to fix the fundamental challenges associated with the cocoa supply chain, it's going to be at risk to increased diseases, foreseeable but unforecastable weather events, and things like that. So it is quite a bit of disappointment to me that the fundamentals have not been addressed and continue to not be addressed by big chocolate by the big chocolate companies and the big cocoa companies. And as a matter of fact, there's some discussion about big cocoa companies manipulating the market through news. So they're pushing certain narratives which are designed to push the price of cocoa down to their advantage in the short term. It's hardly surprising. This stuff happens. As a small chocolate maker, you probably don't have the resources to be able to invest in futures and do other kinds of hedging strategies, perhaps on foreign exchange and other commodities which are important to you, sugar, for example. And so the fact that big chocolate and big cocoa have the resources to engage in these kinds of market shenanigans is par for the course, right? They would rather spend their time, spend their money, spend other resources manipulating the market that actually address the fundamental changes, in my opinion. That's just the way I read it from what it is that I'm looking at. So the market, so ICO, it says here, ICCO is now bullish on there being a surplus, right? Pushing futures down, at least for now. However, the president of ICCO, Michel Arion, says, maybe not. We need to be much more careful. Now, it turns out that big companies, Cadbury, is saying, you know what? We don't think that there's going to be much of a change in demand. So Mondelez, owned by Cadbury, owned by Mondelez, they're saying we don't think that the high prices in chocolate are actually going to do much to consumer demand. Now, what they're talking about here is they're talking about candy, obviously, right? So chocolate-covered Oreos is definitely candy. But it's important to know that the big companies saying that even if the price of chocolate goes up, they don't foresee much of a change in consumer demand, which is heartening for, I think, smaller chocolate companies, that there is room to increase prices, perhaps not at the same level that the price of ingredients is increasing, but there is room for price increases to cover increased costs. So that's good to know. One thing we may want to consider, and this is something that showed up this morning as I was preparing for the episodes, can cocoa flavoring solve the cocoa cost prices? My feeling about that is no. So here is a cocoa flavoring that I picked up when I was in Brussels in October for the British Society of Flavorists conference. And I can tell you that, well, there's a solvent in here. It may be alcohol. I'm not entirely sure. It doesn't list. But this is a cocoa extract, cocoa flavoring. And maybe this would work in compounds. Certainly nothing that has cocoa butter or cocoa non-fat cocoa solids in it. If what you're doing is you're to create a chocolate-like product, again, using compound, or you want to enhance the flavor of something in a baked good, without actually incorporating or reducing the amount of cocoa and increasing the cocoa flavor, you might do that. But if you're a real chocolate lover, the difference between the aroma of this cocoa flavor and here's another cocoa flavor from a different company, they're very, very muted and they're not as complex. I mean, here's a can of actual cocoa powder. I got to tell you, it's immediately distinguishable what's going on. So can cocoa flavoring solve the cocoa cost crisis? If you are an industrial chocolate maker, or you're a baker or a confectioner, and what you're doing is you want to reduce the cost of cocoa and substitute in other ingredients, the answer is, for a large percentage of the customers, it's like, will it really make a difference in a candy bar, which is a very thin shell of compound around it, that they're getting rid of more of the cocoa content of it? The answer is absolutely not, right? If you are in fact somebody who likes real chocolate and real cocoa, that the answer is that no, cocoa flavoring is not going to solve the cost of the crisis. And the more that big chocolate and not big chocolate and companies that use chocolate, right, are allowed to think this way, the more it reduces demand on cocoa farmers. But now what we're starting to do is play with the lives and livelihoods of the farmers and the farming families, right? So reducing demand for cocoa means what is going to be the net impact on farming families' income, cocoa farming families' income. So we have to make sure that I believe, it's my opinion, that if big companies are taking this route as an off-ramp, that what they really do need to do is they do need to find some way to redress the harm that has been done over the course of at least the last 50 years, since the 1970s, late 1970s, and actually much, much longer. So I'm not a big fan of this approach, and I really like the idea of taking on the idea of real cocoa, not real chocolate, but real cocoa. People may know of the Real Chocolate campaign that was founded out of Rococo, and I am completely and totally blanking on the name. I apologize for that. There was this campaign that came out in the 90s, I think, around real chocolate, saying real chocolate is only cocoa butter. And what I'd like to do is Chantal Cody, by the way, great. The moment I stopped thinking about it, there it was. Chantal. I like the idea of picking up the mantle of the Real Chocolate campaign and talking about real cocoa. So, not a big fan of these approaches. The other thing we have to worry about is the potential impact of U.S. administration trade war tariff policies on chocolate makers is not completely known. Right now, the biggest tariff increases have been applied to Canada and Mexico. So if you're buying cocoa beans from Mexico, if you're buying chocolate from Mexico, if you're buying cocoa beans from a Canadian distributor, you're already seeing the impact of that 25% increase in the price of those goods. At the moment, there's only an additional 10% increase on goods coming in from China. So this includes equipment. It includes packaging and other things like that. So these are going to be prices that need to be absorbed. And one thing you may not have thought about is that there is something called the de minimis exception when it comes to importing from overseas. And what the de minimis exception is, if you've ever traveled internationally and you've brought back less than $800 in goods, you don't have to worry about paying duties. And that de minimis exception also applies to importing, right? So shipping. So if you buy something from, a Chinese website, if you're buying from Temu or someplace like that, or any international company, and you're importing into the United States, and the cost is below $800, you don't have to pay import duties. That may change. Right? So the current administration may, in fact, get rid of the de minimis exemption. So if you are relying on importing stuff in small amounts from overseas, you may need to think about how the removal of the de minimis exemption is going to affect your cost of goods. So something to think about. If you're a small chocolate maker and you voted for the the current administration, you were voting against your best interests. And sorry, irrespective of my political views, your political views, that is in fact what it is that's going on. U.S. aid is being pulled apart, is being folded into the State Department, but $40 billion a year. The entire Peruvian cocoa economy was in large part dependent upon investment by U.S. aid, and so we need to really, really think about the long-term effects of these things when we're doing it. And irrespective again of your political opinions, this is the real world implication of having voted for the current administration here in the United States. The World Cocoa Foundation, this next one, up point 2, has talked about their cocoa's rescue plan. And I want to be very careful. The phrase rescue plan showed up as a result of a confectionery news headline. I don't think that the actual article here in confectionery news does in fact mention the word rescue. It does not. All right. So I just wanted to be very careful to say that. But excuse me, the World Cocoa Foundation is talking about, they have a recipe for solving the cocoa crisis, which talks about three things: resilience, sustainability, and collaboration. Resilience, adaptability to climate change, absolutely. Sustainability, whatever that means. Collaboration means, right? So you can go through here and you get an idea of what it is that they're talking about. Calls the challenges the cocoa leaders face today unprecedented, with the cocoa crisis entering its third season. Unprecedented challenges require unprecedented collaboration. Right. So they have a recipe, but they're not talking about all of the ingredients in the recipe and the method that's going to make it work. But if you are interested, you've got the dollars, and you want to go to Brazil, right? The World Cocoa Foundation partnership meeting is happening, and there's a link to the sign up page. So it's coming up real soon. It's in Sao Paulo. I would love to be back in Sao Paulo, but I actually am going to be in New York City for the Salon de Chocolat, so I'm not going to Sao Paulo for this. But if you do want to go to the meeting, there is a link to sign up for it on the page today. I would be interested to know if anybody who's watching this is going to be at that meeting. I would love to have an interview with them afterwards, here as an episode of Pod Safe Chocolate, and talk about what they learned at the meeting in Sao Paulo. Right. Next, and I'm running through this. I got a lot of things, and this is my second cup of coffee this morning. And so I got a lot of energy. What I'd like to do is I'd like to point out a couple of things. Number one is this is a bookmark card that Ghost puts together. And what it's doing is it's pulling information from the Zotter USA website. And it turns out that there's no information in the Zotter USA website that it can pull. So I apologize for this being blank. There's nothing I can do about it. It's the configuration of the Zotter website. I will let them know that they want to update this later today. But I got to give a huge shout out. I got an email from them. I'm on their mailing list. I probably get 10 emails a week, if not more, from them. And what they did is they sent an email alerting everybody to a data breach. Apparently somebody had hacked their phone record and moved their phone from one provider to another provider, and then used that in an attempt to be able to gain control of other parts of the of Zotter's business here in the United States. It was a real quick, it was a detailed email saying, this is what happened. We're following up on it, and here's the impact on you, right? One of our customers. And so I just have to give a real quick shout out to Zotter for doing this. It's a great example of transparent communications. I encourage anybody, right, who finds themselves in this position to be able to take this approach. I can't share you that email because they didn't say it was okay for me to share it. But if you did not get the email and you want to find out about it, go contact Zotter, because I think that they did just a fabulous job in terms of informing their customers about what the potential impact was of this data breach. Really, really good job. So give a shout out, huge kudos to Barbara and the team here in the United States. So quick shout out. This is from Mark and Yuri at Blue Spruce Chocolates in Kittredge, Colorado. Always look forward to your read on the market. Mark, anything different from what you're seeing? Is my take on this different from what other people are saying, or what it is that you're reading? Again, my underlying attitude towards all this is that the commodification of foodstuffs is a bad idea. So the commodification of corn, so putting it on the commodities market, which is what I mean by commodification, right? By trading cocoa, by trading sugar, by trading soybeans and all these things, takes most of the pricing leverage out of the hands of the people who are doing most of all of the pricing leverage, right? Out of the hands of the people who are growing the crops. And so the individual farmer is always going to be at a disadvantage when there are big companies that are shorting the market, right? For cocoa, or shorting the market for wheat, or shorting the market for these things. Farmers always going to lose when this is the case. And so I just fundamentally, this just seems wrong to me. Maybe you feel different. I'm not a libertarian capitalist in that respect. I think there are good things and bad things about a capitalist system. I would like to think more about a regenerative capitalism, or regenerative or restorative capitalism. If anybody is interested, I can let me know in the comments. I can tell you about what that idea is and how I get there. But I'm interested in hearing from you about the challenges that you're facing when it comes to the price of cocoa, and how you might be interested in getting involved and helping, directly involved in helping cocoa farmers address issues with respect to resilience and adaptability when it comes to climate change. And so really, really interested in knowing that kind of stuff, because that's something that I've been working on for quite some time, and we'll have an announcement about in a little while. So having gone through and said, what, big shout out to Zotter USA for their being completely transparent on what they're doing really good, an obfuscation alert. So the FDA has delayed a crackdown on what it means to be healthy, right? So this is something that has been in the works for quite some time. Under the previous administration, it looked like it was going to be enacted relatively quickly, but with the current administration, many, many things related to consumer safety, consumer health, all of these things have been put on the back burner. And so I am sad to be able to tell you that there's no indication about when this would thing. So the effective date, previous 25, has been pushed to April 28th as part of a presidential memorandum freezing all Biden administration regulations, and there's no guarantee that it will actually be implemented on April 28th. So there's not a whole lot about this regulation that affects chocolate bars and candy and things like that with chocolate in it. But the overall move towards helping customers understand what is healthy and what is not healthy, or what is part of a healthy diet and what is not a part of a healthy diet, is something that we do need to be concerned about. Especially in the past, you couldn't make nutrition claims about certain nuts and certain oils, and now you will be allowed to. So that's a good thing, right? Turns out that cocoa butter is a healthy oil, like olive oil is. Certain tree nuts are healthy if you consume them properly, and so they can be a part of a healthy product, which could include chocolate. So it's a shame that the current administration is pushing this kind of transparency and changing its mind. I think is something that we need to worry a lot about. Just, just yeah. We're only what, end of January, end of February, 2 months, and we have another what, 46 months to go or something like that. We need to worry about these things and the long-term effect of these things. Tariffs, the breaking down of the consumer protection system, and who knows what's going to happen over the course of the next several years as big industry is going to be able to infiltrate to a greater extent than they already are these kinds of consumer protections and other aspects of the federal government. Didn't mean to get so political here, but I think it's really important that we understand what those implications are going to be. So Mark is responding. Our read is similar to yours. The current administration attacks on U.S. aid and threats implementation of tariffs will certainly have a negative impact. And Mark, one of the things that I haven't really mentioned, which I think is an important contributor to all of this, is that uncertainty, right, is a contributor to volatility. So, as long as you've got, people don't know what the implications of tariffs are going to be. People don't know what the amount of tariffs and what goods are going to be subject to the tariffs and things like that. That uncertainty, right, contributes to the volatility, and that's a huge thing. It will be interesting to see what statements come out of the World Cocoa Foundation meeting, and I will be following up to see what kind of statements come out of that meeting. But it'll be interesting to see what statements, what the market does in response to the plan, quote unquote, that the World Cocoa Foundation is looking to put into place. So I would put a note in your calendar for the first trading day after the 20th of March, which is the 20th is a Friday, and just find out what cocoa does. It will be interesting to see how the market reacts to what it is the World Cocoa Foundation. And what I may do is after this is I'll put a link to the page on the World Cocoa Foundation website where the members of the World Cocoa Foundation are listed. So you get an idea of who the players are who are members of the World Cocoa Foundation, and the impact that they have. And I may have mentioned that I did the candy industry top 100. I did an analysis of it. What I may do is it occurs to me that I could put the World Cocoa Foundation membership as a column in that list, and I can find out what percentage of the global cocoa market and chocolate market is controlled by members of the World Cocoa Foundation. That's an interesting idea. I may do that. It's an interesting idea. All right. Anyway, but excuse me. Continuing on, the next things, festival updates. I think it's really important to know that at the end of this month, March 21 through 23, at Jacob K. Javits Convention Center on, 11th Avenue between 40th and 38th Street or something like that, is going to be the upcoming Salon du Chocolat in New York City. I'm going to be there. I've made my plans to be there. If you're watching this, listening to this, and you're going to be at the salon, put a note in the comments and let me know you're going to be there, and we'll see about finding a time to get together. It would be, if I haven't met you in person, I would love to meet you in person. If I have met you in person, it would be lovely to see you again. But it's going to be interesting to see the market. The market, exhibitors seem to be responding quite positively. So there are going to be a good number of exhibitors. There's a list here of the exhibitors who are going to be there. I've already had a chance to speak with Tuta Aquino, who's going to be coming from Brazil and representing Baiani. I know that we had a chance to speak with the people at Chocolagnin and Inaru, who I had not met before, from the Dominican Republic, I believe. And I know that Mona Shingaris of Amore de Mona is going to be there. I haven't seen Tanya from Via Cuyaya in many, many years. So I'm looking to catch up with people. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on. And if you can be there, if you are going to be there, go and do so and let me know. And we can catch up while we're there. Now, I don't know that I'm trying to find a ride back and forth to the Southwest Chocolate and Coffee Festival, which is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I had a great time there last year. It's a fabulous festival. It really does meet a lot of the requirements. The last episode on last Friday, I did elements of successful chocolate festivals. The Southwest Chocolate and Coffee Festival does a lot of things very, very right. So if you're in the Southwest and you are interested in chocolate, there's a lot of stuff that's going to. Oh, there was a picture of me in that video that was playing. Anyway, I can recommend it. It's a great time. It's a fabulous festival. There are lots of craft makers. There are bigger makers. There's lots of coffee. There's wine. All sorts of fun stuff. If you can make it, go there. Right. So many of you may have heard that the craft chocolate experience was not only postponed, it was canceled. I'm not entirely sure why this is taking so long to load. There we go. But the craft chocolate experience was canceled, and then management of everything was transferred to the event production company that oversaw it last year, and they moved it from the date. It's now Mother's Day weekend, and it's now at the Hilton Union Square in downtown San Francisco, as opposed to being at the Palace of Fine Arts. It looks like it's more been um, focused, if I can, on uh, Mother's Day celebrations. So families getting together and having chocolate celebration. It looks to be more focused on that. There is an exhibition component, and people are called merchants. They're not called exhibitors. But right now, it looks like there might be only 3 confirmed exhibitors. It's not entirely sure what this line means, right? So I wish them all great luck, but I would pay careful attention to what's going on. If you're in the San Francisco area, I mean, San Francisco currently does not have a globally recognized chocolate festival. San Francisco is an important destination for chocolate. There are lots of good makers in central North California, North Central California, however we want to, the Bay Area and around. So it's a shame that there hasn't actually been a chocolate festival which is successful as the ones in Seattle, the ones in Dallas, and the one in New York. I'm not entirely sure why not, right? I'm hoping that this will be a successful festival, but I don't see many of the characteristics that I would have expected at this point. But I'm not going to be there. But if you are going to be there, please, I'm interested in knowing what's going on. If you are an exhibitor, let me know. If you've thought about being an exhibitor and you're not going to exhibit, they've approached you. Maybe you were an exhibitor last year, you're not going to be an exhibitor this year. I would be interested in knowing what the thoughts are. And if you're coming internationally, how tariffs and other changes affect the economics, because I haven't really thought about how the tariff is going to affect, if it does affect, the economics of international exhibitors coming to the United States for festivals. It could. Huh. Something to worth thinking about. All right. I do maintain a chocolate events and holidays calendar on the Chocolate Life. Here it is. I keep it up to date as much as I can. It's a pretty remarkable challenge to keep up to date. I'm pretty clear that I think I've got everything through the end of May, maybe into the everything I've got in the end of June. I know that I need to do some work towards the end of the year. I go to websites and I go, right, do you have the dates for the year published yet? A couple of things. We'll see that the Chorley Chocolate Festival in the UK, which was originally set for the end of June, has been moved to July. So I'm trying to accommodate those changes as well. One thing I will say, and this is huge, is that I did have a chance to talk with Dustin Cornett, and the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival is scheduled for November 21st. Unfortunately, the webpage hasn't been updated, but the dates are the same. It is the same. It's the weekend before Thanksgiving this year in Rushville, Indiana. Um, if you're anywhere within striking distance, this is a fabulous festival. So go there. It's a lovely town. I had a great time working with people, and I can't really say more about the organizing committee. And I am, I am confident that we'll see a lot of people who were there last year as exhibitors will be returning this year, and we'll find a whole bunch of new exhibitors as well. But there is a calendar here, and if you know of events, I mean, that are not on the list and you'd like them to be on the list, just throw them onto the list. In the comments, you do have to be a member, so you join. There's a free membership, but I will make sure that the events that you send to me are in fact included in the calendar. So that's a really important thing with all of that stuff. Oh, and by the way, it's not here, and I for some reason, and I'll put it in, but there is a YouTube channel that the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival has put together. That's got a bunch of really, really fun videos. And so Maybe I mentioned them last week. I'm not entirely sure. But if you're looking to see many of the presentations that were made at the festival last year, they are on the Craft Chocolate Festival, the Midwest Craft Chocolate Festival website. Subscribe to it, right? Watch them, because I think that it's going to be a good resource for people, and the show deserves as much support as we can give it. Partly because Season 4 of the Craft Chocolate Challenge, judging begins. I am expecting most of the entries, maybe not all of the entries, but most of the entries are supposed to arrive here in Prescott tomorrow. Well, that makes it the 8th of March, and I have 10 days, because I'm leaving on the 19th to go to New York. I have 10 days to judge more than 60 entries. You can go to the Craft Chocolate Challenge page. Here it is. There's a link to it in the post, and you can find out what the official entries are. So there are 25 dark chocolate entries, 13 milk chocolate entries. So it's a good cross section, right, of distribution. It's a good distribution between dark milk and white and inclusions, but it's also really interesting to see the number of countries that are, represented. So Sweets Escalier from Japan, right, is a regular entrant. 21 Degrees Estate, I believe, was last year. So in the United States, a new entry from Japan, a company called Anatista, who I'm not familiar with. Sudis from India is a new company. Primo Chocolate from Belarus, a new company. Philomena Craft Chocolate, a new company entered this year. Chocolat Infini from Canada, a new entrant this year. So I am really, really excited about tasting. I know much about Brazilian cocoa, but I've never heard of Franco cacao. Yohoa from Honduras is going to be there. Hey, Mark, I see that you have entered something. 72% Hacienda Victoria with Turkish Urfa chili. I'm a huge fan of Urfa chili. So I've been looking at this and going, yeah, there's a lot of stuff here that I am really, really looking forward to. A new entrant from the Czech Republic. So I got to say, as a judge, I am really, really stoked to see the new entrants, right, from different countries, and all of the thought that has gone into flavor combinations in the entries as well. So unlike other competitions, if you are unfamiliar with this one, unlike other competitions, there is a dark chocolate category, and that includes plain and flavored dark chocolate, right? No inclusions, so nothing that adds a texture to the chocolate, but plain and flavored. And there is no distinction between large batch and small batch, and producers in cocoa producing countries and producers elsewhere. There's none of those distinctions. Right? It's really all about it. And so as a judge, in some respects, it makes our job easier. And in some respects, it makes our job more difficult. For me, I find overall that it makes the job a whole lot more fun, which is really, really cool. One of the things to think about for this year, which is interesting, and I've been looking for it as well. And so, hey, Dustin, if you're watching this, you may want to change, right, the metadata in the head of your HTML so that it pulls the Midwest the Craft Chocolate Challenge logo here rather than the Beanstalker logo. But the Beanstalker logo is there is because what we're going to be doing this year is we're going to be using this brand new website and this brand new service, which is located in Australia, as the judging platform. Right? We have Dustin was approached by Steph, whose last name escapes me, who is in Australia, who's put together this website called Beanstalker. And one of the things that you can do is I can go to my profile, I think, and I can rate bars. So, all right, I've only judged a Craft Chocolate Challenge. If you're not actually a judge, you don't get to see this, right? But you can go and you can judge any chocolate bar that you want. You can rate and review it. and it will be up there. And it's a really, really fun rating and reviewing interface. There's all sorts of attention to detail that if you rate and review, you may not have thought of. So it's very, very cool to do that. You let me go take a look. So here's a list of craft chocolate bars. So these are bars that have already been rated or are waiting to be rated. And if you want to, I'm logged in. And so what you're doing is you're looking at the judging interface for the Craft Chocolate Challenge. I would have to log out so you can see the public interface. But if you have a business in chocolate, you can list your business in chocolate. It's really, really cool in very, very many respects. And I'm looking forward to it. The reason why I mention it, right, for everybody is that what you can do is you can become an unofficial judge and join along with the Craft Chocolate Challenge. So if you are able to purchase any of these bars, but you're not a judge, what you can do is you can go to Beanstalker and you can provide your own thoughts about these chocolate bars. And the public ratings that we give. So some of the things that we're doing at Judges are private and will be shared only with the makers, and some of them are public. But everything that we do that is public will be added to what you do as public. And you'll be able to say, oh, this is how I rated it, or this is what I thought about it. Here's the way other people are thinking about it. So it's very, very cool. So I'm really, really excited about the possibility of people who are here in the United States who have access to many of these bars will rate the bars as a part of the Beanstalker platform. So I'm really, really, I know that we've been talking, Dustin and I and other people have been talking about doing a public judging, but just the administrative process of getting all the information and putting it into a format that makes sense is just an enormous amount of work if we were to have, for example, hundreds of people doing this. But if you are interested, you can go to Beanstalker, you can sign up for an account. So you can go to Beanstalker, sign up for an account, and start rating and reviewing bars. I think it's going to be really, really cool. And it's located in Australia, and I am a huge fan. I'm family there, been there a couple of times, love the country and what's going on. And I'm at the end. This is everything that I wanted to talk about, and we're about 10 minutes before the scheduled end. So if you have something that you'd like to talk about, if you've got a question, an AMA, ask me anything, as long as it's about cocoa or chocolate, you can put it into the comments right now, and I'll wait a minute or two. I usually don't have a problem rambling on about stuff. If you've got a question or a comment that you'd like to let me know about it. And I will try to answer it in the next 10 minutes or so before the end of the episode. But waiting for that, this is the homepage of the Chocolate Life. And this episode of Pod Save Chocolate, like every episode of Pod Save Chocolate, is sponsored by the members of the Chocolate Life. Whether you're a free member or whether you're a premium member, your support of the Chocolate Life provides me with the resources and the inspiration to continue the work that I've been doing. And as you can see on the homepage of the Chocolate Life right now, I've been doing the Chocolate Life now for 17 plus years. January 16th, 2008 was when the Chocolate Life officially came online. And the reason why I can do this is the support and encouragement of people like you. I know that Mark and Yuri at Blue Spruce Chocolates are premium members of the Chocolate Life, and I thank them for that ongoing support. It's been really, really valuable to me to have that support. And it's also been great because once a month, there's an all-member AMA. So it tends to be on Sundays, and it tends to be on Sundays. No, it doesn't tend. It's always on Sunday. It tends to be on the third Sunday of every month. It starts at 11 o'clock Arizona time. And it's 90 minutes where you can anybody who is a member of the Chocolate Life is able to see the link. So I'm logged in. So if you see I'm going to send out the March member newsletter this weekend, but here's the February member newsletter, and there is a link to join the video call. If you're not a member, you don't see this link, but if you are a member, you do see the link. So if you are a member, you can join the all-member AMA call. I'll put a notice of it up on the website but I will get the member newsletter out this weekend, and it's going to be next weekend before I head off to New York City for the Salon du Chocolat. But it's one of the perks of membership. If you've got questions, we're able to do this. So question, who sells Volker's beans in the US? So the answer to that question is I don't know today, right? If you'd asked me this question 6 months ago, I would have known. I can't tell you who it is today. There may be some beans at Cocoa Supply still. I don't know that they are a primary supplier anymore. So let's look at Cocoa Supply. Excuse me. Shop by categories. Go to beans. By the way, Cocoa Supply is a supporter of the Chocolate Life. So Marañón, Hacienda del Castillo, Ucayali in Peru. So they do have some Rio Beni. I doubt that these may be Volker's beans from the Rio Beni, but I doubt that they are the Hacienda Tranquilidad. If that's what you're asking about, you're asking specifically about Hacienda Tranquilidad. So this is, if you've never had a chance to try Mahambo, or Jaguar Cacar, also called Pataste or Theobroma bicolor, okay, then this is one thing you might want to do is if you were to pan toast these with undeodorized cocoa butter and then salt them, you do have to be careful about the little black radical which is in there because it's really tough to eat. But I can tell you that pan roasted Jaguar, Mahambo, Pataste, whatever, Theobroma bicolor, whatever it is that you'd like to call it, it's like more addictive than popcorn. It's really, really good. And I can tell you that it makes a fabulous, almost chocolate-like product. It's just really, really good. What I can do, Mark, is I can send an email off to Volker. So Cocoa Supply seems not to carry. Rio Beni is out of stock. Unfortunately, it doesn't say out of stock here. At least it doesn't say it on the cover page. Maybe if I go onto the link, it doesn't say out of stock. I'll mention that to Lila. They're throwing an after party at the salon, and I will be going to the after party at the salon. I think it's a Friday, if I recall correctly. But I will mention this to her, and then I will also go find out from Volker. I will send him a WhatsApp and ask him who is the U.S. salesperson for it before we go. All right. And that's it. This is pretty much unprecedented, ending an episode of Pod Safe Chocolate before the hour is over, before the hour allotted to it is done. I love putting together these monthly news and AMA episodes. Some of this is going to be repeated in the member newsletter, which will be going out on Sunday, I'm thinking. But it's really fun for me to go and focus on all of the news feeds that I get, all the sources for news about the industry to talk about stuff. Some of it is really important. Some of it is fabulous in the sense of being a fable, or just small tidbits and trivia and things that are interesting. So it's always interesting for me to do it. I always have fun doing it. And as everybody knows who has paid any attention to these episodes of Pod Save Chocolate, you know that I think that if you're working with chocolate and you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. So until the next time, everybody, ciao.